Welcome to the We Fucking Love Startups podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hammond, and on today's episode, we're chatting with Kat Lintott. Kat is the co-founder of Wrestler and a couple of other new products that I'm going to let you hear about on the podcast today that she does with her partner and Ben. I put it out on the socials all the time and say, look, who do you want to hear from? Kat's name came up a lot, and so I just had to get a hold of her. We tried a couple of times. Timing worked out really well this time, so I'm really pleased to get her on the show. Kat's had a remarkable story. She's come up on the podcast a few times, so I want to ask her about that Burning Man thing. And so, yeah, really looking forward to this one. I hope you are too. Sit back, relax, enjoy, and let's get into it.
Kia ora. Thanks for tuning into the We Fucking Love Startups podcast, brought to you by Talent Army.
What's a content detox?
Well, I just came back from Burning Man and was so into life that I forgot to watch content for a couple of months. And then I realized I just was actually repelling watching anything like TV shows or anything. And so I've just consciously not been watching content since then.
Yeah.
So no movies, no TV shows. I'll occasionally listen to something that might be 10 minutes long, but that's more of a podcast or an audiobook. And I will read a little bit, but I actually find reading quite hard as well. So it's like kind of a pure content detox. And I just end up consume a lot of my information through people that I talk to and the expertise around what their matter might be. And kind of let the universe flow through me rather than getting content fed to me. Yeah.
I kind of love that because I feel like I consume way more content now than I ever have. And, like when I set up the podcast, I started watching everyone's podcast or listening to everyone's podcast or reading so much more or watching things. I don't watch TV so much and movies so much anymore, but I'll go home and I'll put a podcast on the TV, like a video podcast, and then I'll be listening to it as I'm cleaning up or doing dinner or something. And then I find that I sort of slowly start moving towards the couch and sit there and watch 3 hours worth of podcasts the rest of the night while I'm working on my phone. And so I kind of like the sound of a content detox.
Yeah, well, especially if you just said you had a concussion, having no screens is probably the best thing you could ever do for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I feel very vulnerable right now and saying thank you for coming on and being my doctor. Yeah, it's been weird having doctors tell me what to do. I'm such a stupid male guy that's never looks after myself, never goes to the doctor. And so when this happened, I was like, fuck, I want to fix my body quickly because I haven't got the time to be.
How long ago? Sorry if other people have heard this already, but how long ago?
It was the Tuesday after the Easter breaks, not that long. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, but I was told that I was my recovery would be 3 to 5 months or something. And I seem to be bouncing back pretty quickly. Still in a lot of pain, but I'm, mobility and body's feeling better. It's just the brain. I was trying to articulate something in a previous podcast, and I was trying to get the word imposter syndrome out, and I just couldn't for the life of me. And when you can't think of the word, but then you don't want to make an attempt at it because it'll just sound stupid, your pretend thing, you're pretending hat. Yeah, and so
I think being a mum teaches you have to describe every word. If they say, "Oh, what does the word that mean?" or something, it's really hard to describe things or so it's kind of a practice to be able to describe words, isn't it?
Yeah. And I wouldn't say I'm the most articulate bloke in the first place. I didn't go to university, left school really early, and so my vocabulary is just my world that I live in. And so I try and increase that, and I try and do all these things, but then I don't want to change who I am. I love the fact that I can come on a podcast and talk shit with people and have fun, and that's what it is, rather than trying to be, some beautifully orator. I can't even think of that word now.
Yeah, well, I mean, then you'll be talking to the beautiful orator that is
hopefully.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, so talking about your daughter, right?
Yes, I've got a daughter and a son. Yeah.
Cool. Who I saw on your website? Who's at the bottom?
Willoughby, yeah. So she's almost 5 now, so she's starting school in 2 months.
Yeah.
And so she would have been about 2 then.
I love that.
videos.
There's always those little things on your website, like the iterations. Like I loved the previous version I saw your website where you just had a camera set up in one of those booths and it was just sort of people coming in and out, of Wrestler.
Yeah, we're actually updating our website. It might be live in a couple of days. So
awesome.
That's been a nice long time coming, but...
Well, it actually should be out now then if it's a couple of days.
Yeah, true.
And so
there we go.
It's here, Jono. We'll put it here. Yeah. I keep doing this to him to make it hard and moving.
My general manager will hate this though because she's like, it's a soft launch, but I'm so excited about it. So, but yeah.
Websites are full on.
Especially for like content creation companies where you tell people to do this, but actually what you do is so not as good as what you would tell other people to do.
How often do you have to redo your website then as a content creation company?
I think we've probably done it every 2 years or so. Because websites change and what people want to see are different and our tastes change too,
And you're always thinking ahead, right? Like you're trying to project what you want to do, I guess.
What we want to do, what we're celebrating and what jobs we want to manifest to come our way,
Yeah. Cool. So what is Wrestler now?
What is Wrestler now? I think the best way to describe Wrestler is it's a content creation company with storytelling, but we help with complex messaging and we try and simplify them and make them easily digestible for the people that need to receive it.
Yeah.
So that really can be like brand storytelling, case studies, just kind of anything, social media videos, kind of anything that a company or an organization needs to communicate to their target market.
And is that just video storytelling or all facets of storytelling now?
So video is definitely our main specialty. And then I specialise particularly in interactive media. So that's looking at VR, AR.
Yeah.
I want to get into like interactive projections, which I haven't done yet, but
What's
I will
interactive
do.
projection?
So it's where you have a projector, like projected onto a wall, but then sensors will sense you as as a viewer of the art and you will then interact with it.
So you become like a character in the art?
Yeah, like your movements or interactions will change the way the art is portrays itself.
What's an example of that? Who's done that or where that you've seen?
It's I guess like lots of museums will do it where you'll kind of walk into a space and also like Te Taiao, which is at Te Papa at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wall up there where you can, or you'll see like the under the sea scene, under the Moana scene. And then if you put your hand on this like round wooden thing, it will, depending on how many people put their hands on it, there'll be more fish life or less fish life in the visual animation. So that's like an example.
Yeah.
That's one I can think of off the top of my head.
Awesome. Because that's not like how Wrestler started out, right? Like you...
I mean, Wrestler started with Ben, ultimately. And
Ben was a camera operator from memory, was that right?
He was like the whole one-man band kind of thing where he'd do the producing and the client relationship, and then go and film it, even do the interviews, and then edit it and deliver it, and do everything.
Like John O's doing right now.
Exactly. And then from there, he decided he wanted to grow it. And I had just come from 8i, and they made me redundant where they were moving the staff, or a lot of the stuff was going over to the States.
Yeah.
And so I kind of did another mapping of my life, for like what is my purpose and what do I want to do. And I love the idea of doing business development for anyone. Like I didn't really think about myself as an entrepreneur at the time. And then he was like, oh, well, I need your skills, so why don't we work together? So we joined forces.
So were you an item then?
We were an item.
Okay, cool,
we were actually getting married that year.
What a schoolboy way of saying that. Were you an item? did he tick a box saying yes?
Yeah, so we started working together. Although we had started another company, one of the first drone companies in New Zealand, and that's when we were not dating. And then we started dating, but he said that he wanted to start this company because he wanted to get with me. So it's like,
love it.
We've always been life partners and business partners, like together. Yeah.
Jono was actually telling me about that drone thing where you brought like a cinematic camera down or something from a drone, and he was like how fucking cool it was at the time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Didn't pay off. The investment didn't pay off. It was not, drone, like DJI, like tech got so good that anyone could be drone operator in the end. So it was interesting, like first was it soiree into startup world for me. Yeah.
Awesome. And so Wrestler said Ben was everything. He said, come and join me and to do this thing. So what was Wrestler going to be then?
That's still just like people asking us to make videos. And then we had another guy called Glenn Biklowski, who was kind of the creative director and writer. So it would be like Ben on the camera, me producing and client relation, and then Glenn is the creative director and that kind of stuff. And that was a great trio. The three of us worked really well together. And then, that would be either agencies coming to us and saying, hey, we've got this creative idea, can you execute it? All the way through to us just doing it ourselves. Yeah. And then over the years, it just like grew from that to, 20 people, and now we've just shrunk a little bit again. Yeah. With recession going on, and so
when did you know, like when it was you, Ben and Glenn, when did you know, oh fuck, we've got something here, we're growing? Like when was that moment?
It's just such an organic growth. It started in a recession, and so I think like the other people that we were competing against, well, not competing against even, but they were like very high production, TVC style stuff. And Ben saw the vision of like YouTube as the next platform. And so the offering that he brought to the market was very like low cost compared to the bigger players. And then we kind of grew from there into more of that like medium sized production cost, which is where we're at now. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And you famously made a video for me back in the day.
I was wondering if this is going to come up.
Yeah, I think I talked about it on our previous.
Are we going to link it? We should link
I don't have the video anymore.
We do.
I'd love to be able to show people it. So I'll tell you my side of the story, right?
Great.
And so I came in and said, like, really want you to make a video. Like, I'd just set up Telenami probably 6 months prior. And I was like, I want something. I remember I was chatting with Ben, and was it Ben and who else?
Glenn or Judah? One of the two.
Yeah. And I said, I want something that's like a video launching Telenami, but I don't really want it to be about recruitment. I was like, recruitment's a little bit boring. What can you do? And I think Glenn said, well, how far on the spectrum do you want to go? And I was like, well, I'm kind of out there. I was the zero fucks guy at the time, right? So I was like, I want to go out there. I want to push the envelope a little bit. And he was like, so 1 to 10, how far do you want to push the envelope? And I was like, I don't know, 8 to 10, somewhere in that. And he goes, okay, because we've had this idea for a long time about a video, but people have been too scared to make it. Are you happy? And I was like, sure, what's the premise? And then they told me the premise and I was instantly too scared to make it. So the premise was about a guy who, well, how did they say that? And so it's about a guy who every time he ejaculates, he time travels. It's called Time Jacker.
Yeah.
And we think we can incorporate it into recruitment somehow. And I was like, I don't know how the fuck you can incorporate it into recruitment, but if you believe you can do it and do it well, I'm down. And they were like, well, how much do you want to know about it? And I was like, I don't want to know anything about it until the end. But I said, one thing that I do want is I want it to be like, because obviously it's a little bit borderline crazy. I want it to be really powerful and empowering, and I don't want it to be like chauvinist. Mm-hmm. And so I was assured by, who was the lovely lady at the time? There was
Olivia,
tall brunette. Mm-hmm. I can't remember her name, but she was cool. And she was like, no, we'll make it really powerful for women so that all the strong characters will be women and the likes. And I was like, okay, go for it. And then and then they made it. And I was like, holy shit.
You would have seen the script though.
I don't think I even saw the script.
You must have.
I think I knew the premise, but I was too scared to know the details. I think I just said, just go for it and surprise me. And so the first time I actually watched it was they brought me into the office, your old office across the road, and I watched it. And was it Glenn that was the Nazi? Yeah. Who was the
yeah, Glenn was the Nazi, yeah.
And that moment he's like, and sometimes it interferes with my relationship and he's getting hot and heavy with this girl, and then all of a sudden his time travels to Nazi Germany, and then Glenn comes in as the nut. I was like, oh my God, this is so full on, but it's it's so full on, but I think I need to just get it out there and do it. And so then I took it to Tony Moyes, right? Yeah. And I said to Tony, I want you to watch something and just give me your honest feedback on it. And then I sat there from across the other side of the desk just watching her looking at the screen. So like you're looking at me, looking at the screen now. Right. And I saw her eyes just going like scowling her face. And I was thinking, oh, fuck. And then I said, so what did you think? She was like, I mean, it's really high production quality. Like, it's amazing. But what the fuck is it about recruitment? And I was like, yeah, well, that's kind of what I was going for, right? Like a bit of a shock factor. And the way that your creative team managed to spin it was like, and now I've got this superpower for like after dealing with Talent Army and my recruitment superpower, I can do things for good. And then you see him masturbating in the street. And initially, I think one thing that I did ask to be changed was that he was masturbating in the street, and there was a sign behind him that said something primary school, and I was like, oh no, that's a bit far.
That's a good valid call.
Yeah, and so we changed it to a retirement village, and then he goes and saves the day and stops a robber in some dairy. So yeah, amazing video. And then I launched it and put it up, and it went huge for 2 weeks. Like it was such a cool way to launch my company, and I had lots of good and bad feedback straight away, but no one. And it wasn't so bad feedback. It was just like, you fucking crazy. Yeah. But everyone kept saying how great the video was, like the production and how it was shot and the likes. And then unfortunately we got, there was one person, a candidate in particular, that I had to reject a few times. And I think she was a little bit against me because of that. So she started a bit of a whirlwind in a Slack channel around how I was being, horrific to women because of it. And so I just pulled it. And then I think you guys kept it on your showreel for a while without Talent Army.
We just took the thing because it is such a funny. It's like a short film. Like you literally we made a great short film. Yeah, well, we even thought about submitting it into short film things because it was so good.
Oh, I loved it. I was really proud of it, and it was so on brand for me at the time.
It's sad that it did get pulled because it definitely wasn't like I'm super feminist and equalist, and I felt like at no point were we would never have made something that we felt was sexist or whatever. But it was very risky. I mean, having masturbation in a promo video is really high risk.
Nazis, masturbation, retirement village.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a great video. And so if you've still got it, maybe you send me a link and we'll put it in the show notes so people can watch it if they want to watch it. Mm-hmm. What's been the video that you've made that you were probably the most scared about?
Scared about?
Because I was scared launching that one out. Was there one that you're fear of the pressure of how good it had to be or the content or something that,
Yeah, so I wasn't scared. I was nervous, which was a documentary series that I did the creative direction for with the New Zealand Police. Mm-hmm. And it was exploring, it was called Puhikura, and it was following 5 wahine Māori and the journeys that they've been on while looking at becoming cops.
Yeah.
And none of them had become cops yet. And also it was also looking at the hard things that they've had in their lives and, why haven't they been able to be cops yet and all that kind of stuff. So
I think I've seen this. That was the New Cops thing, was it? Part of the New
Cops? Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen this. Cool.
Yeah, thanks for watching it. So, the client came to us with a brief that they wanted to do a documentary look at this, and we presented back. It was a competitive pitch, and so we didn't pitch a creative idea. We actually pitched for a kaupapa approach, which a creative kaupapa approach, which is basically looking at working with everyone collaboratively and getting advisory groups on board. We had participant consent journeys mapped out, so every part of the way was very much respecting the wahine that were gifting us their stories as taonga. The relationship with New Zealand Police and Māori, has a big history.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to hold this space in a way that was hopeful but truthful, looking at the past, acknowledging where that's been, where are we at now, and then what are we looking for the future. And that was huge. And I think...
Do you think you won it because of that? That's a really, beautiful, respectful way of pitching for a piece of work, if I say.
I think so, yeah. Just not actually coming at it with an idea yet, but it was a collaborative approach of how we would navigate it every day.
Yeah.
And
so
finding
why
the right
were you
director.
most nervous about it? Because you wanted to be so good, or?
I mean, it's the relationship that police have with Māori. It's big, Yeah. And at the end of the documentaries, the commissioner actually wrote a apology at the end of the documentary, and that is huge for that healing. I think it was a very healing thing for a lot of people, internally and externally.
Yeah.
so that was huge. And that's still, and the idea was to also go into communities and have like in real life events where people would watch the documentaries and be able to talk about it rather than it just being like a TVC or something like that. It was a much more face-to-face kind of thing, which is much more Māori. Yeah.
Awesome. What, like, one thing that, you know, anytime you engage with wrestler, be it online or in person, storytelling is the word that sort of comes up, you know, a lot. And storytelling for me is everything that I do as well in recruitment. Like if I'm recruiting for a wrestler and if I can't tell your story like it rolls off my tongue like I work at wrestler, then I shouldn't be recruiting at wrestler. Like,
we still can't do that.
Yeah, well, you know, like they evolve and they definitely get like, it's funny when you host a podcast, people's PR stories of how they started, like their origin stories become so beautiful and so practiced and rehearsed. And I'm like, I was fucking there back in the day. That wasn't the truth, but, you know, good story. But storytelling is really, really important, you know, and I think that's something like what I'm seeing now with a lot of video production companies and companies like yours is like authentic storytelling as well, not just, you know.
Has to be.
Yeah. So talk me through that. Why is that something that's so passionate for you guys?
Because no one wants to watch an inauthentic video these days. Like you've got TikTok, Instagram. I mean, I don't know how many people have actual TVs in their homes anymore, but we don't actually watch TV ads anymore. You know, it's very much about what is like being fed to us through the algorithms of, you know, what you're sharing on your LinkedIn, and is that going to be interesting to me? You know, like those are the videos that we're watching. It's not like super polished, like 30-second snippets anymore. Yeah. And so I think there's also the thing of where I guess there's more of us are wanting to make the future a better place. You know, we know the climate change is hard, like politics is crazy, like we don't even understand it anymore, you know, it's like so fighty all the time. Yeah. And so if we can have less unknown, you know, like questioning like whether this is a good thing to watch or not, then what am I trying to say here? Like the companies that are actually feeding you marketing information, you know, you're not going to watch something that you don't want to see. So you have to know that that company's authentic truly with the product that they're using. You know, so Allbirds is like a classic example where, you know, they have like the most sustainable show, but they're also like treat their staff really well. But their message is just like, it's a great show and you can run in it and stuff. But the authenticity behind all of that is so pure. That's so important. Whereas if you have a company that's like, I'm going to sell you chocolate bars, and they don't have the authenticity that the beans are produced, you know, are grown ethically and all that kind of stuff. Like people will soon understand that and they won't buy the product anymore. Yeah. So you just have to have an authentic story in order for your customers to actually buy the product, you know?
How do you think about that versus TikTok and filters and rehearsed videos and like like a lot of smaller soundbite storytelling now? You just can't believe, you know, like the amount of TikTok's videos and small Instagrams and story videos that I've seen where it's clearly not true, but it's like something good to get out there that gets, you know, lots of traction and trends, etc. And so it goes viral. Like how do we think about that versus like the authentic storytelling in longer form seems to be really good, but the short form seems to be a little bit weird.
I think you can't dismiss anything anymore. Like I think that the 30-second TikTok video has to be just as relevant as the like hour-long podcast because the 16-year-old person is only listening to that 30-second one. So it's really important to get and I guess that's where like trained storytellers can kind of get those snippets in there. But then at the same time, the 16-year-old person who's actually making the 30-second content might actually beat all of the other things because they're more authentic for that audience. Yeah. So it's a really tricky one. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. I think like advertising and marketing is shifting so drastically at the moment. People are trying to figure out how to keep up, you know. It's hard.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's funny. I get so many people hit me up every day about the podcast saying, hey, I want to do your TikTok videos and I want to do this and I want to do like all this. And yeah, it's like there's so many things in a business now or in video and content that you have to do and how many platforms you have to be across. I mean, it's getting a little bit easier with the short form stuff that everything seems to be like you can do one video now and push it out through all of them. But man, it's like a full-time job in itself just posting videos these days.
Yeah. I think how I've looked at mediums, so I'm I'm really interested in multimedia storytelling. But what I wouldn't do...
What is multimedia storytelling?
Multimedia is so like, say you've got... another company that we've started is called Soul Æther, and it's a sci-fi fantasy world, and it's a multimedia from day one. So we've built a world lore that can sit on any medium that we want. So say we'll write a book, a film, an animated series, and a game, but all of those will have different narratives that sit on those mediums. So you wouldn't do the book and then recreate the book story as a game and as a film, which is really common at the moment. That's the best way that's the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah.
But I would have like multimedia as like, so the podcast now we've got this is great. But if then you wanted to do something with me on an animated series, or we could do a graphic novel together, that we wouldn't talk about what we're talking about now. It would be quite different, but it would be in the same world of what we are talking about, And so because people who read a graphic novel don't listen to podcasts, or if they do, the way that you consume that is like so different that you wouldn't want to translate them directly.
Yeah.
So I think that's how, if you're going to do a podcast, do a podcast. And then if you're going to do a graphic novel, do a graphic novel. Like don't try and just make them the same story on
So keep it in the same universe, but it's looking through a different lens, right?
Yeah,
And so,
And it's additive. It's not like the samey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I recently watched one thing that I like. I'm the same as you. Well, I don't have TV, free-to-air TV in my house. I've never had it since I moved to New Zealand. And I was just like, that's one thing I'm going to give up on. I'll just stream anything that I want to watch. And I watched that Spotify series recently on Netflix, which tells the Spotify story of how they started. But that's called The Playlist. And each episode is telling that same story through someone else's eyes. So the first story is the founder, the second story is the chairman, the third story is the first lawyer that worked there, the fourth story is, X person. And it's like a different, slightly variated story because of the person's feelings and emotions and what they saw happen.
Yeah.
And it was like the first time that I was like, it feels more authentic to me because you're seeing it through so many different people's eyes.
Yeah.
And like seeing how the narrative changes for different people. Yeah, interesting stuff. There's lots of shit happening in the media world these days, and like trying to keep up with it is hard.
Yeah.
How do you because Wrestler's done VR, AR, like NFT stuff as well, or is that just?
So NFTs is through their new company, Soul Æther. Yeah, but yes, we have. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And has it just been something that you're just interested in, and keep finding things at a personal interest and grow into that, or has that been strategic in terms of the company?
Ben and I love new technology to the detriment of ourselves probably. But knowing like what's the new platforms, like what is there that we can utilize to be more efficient, or just like the new shiny thing, I think.
Yeah.
But what we're learning is like it's really important to have your foundational like good solid company that works, and then you can do the experimentation stuff around it, but you've always got to make sure that your primary organization is like solid. And that's what Wrestler is. Like Wrestler is our foundation, and then anything that can grow from that. But if Wrestler starts to wobble, then none of those other things can happen.
Yeah, I'm keen to dig into this, right? So let's put a pin in this now and explore this.
Okay.
So Wrestler is your primary rock salt. Like it pays the bills for you to be able to do everything else because it's a great company that's
and it's in a sense it's innovative, but it's not. It's like a product, everyone understands it.
Yeah.
We make videos and you put them on your website or
it's like repeatable
media.
now, right?
Yeah.
And then but then how do you maintain that company doing its core business well so that you've got the time and freedom to be able to go around the edges and do other things? Do you just put really good people in that to run?
Yeah. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have had 2 general managers in our in Wrestler's life, and they both are like the core person that keeps the team happy. So they're really the people.
Yeah.
And making sure that the staff are happy, that the processes are constantly being looked at, and it's never perfect because companies grow and flex and change, but they're the ones that really keep the eye on that. And then Ben and I, we'll sometimes
you
look
operate
at that,
as a board.
and then
You operate more as a board governance level now for Wrestler, or
Ben's like more CEO level,
Yeah.
and then I am kind of like creative floaty right now. But yeah, so bit more board level, but we do kind of get in projects and where we need to, like the police project for me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get to with this question, right? Is that, so I'm in a similar position, right? Talent Army is doing well. It sort of runs. We've got it on wheels now. James is the CEO and runs it. I still have to get pulled in every now and then, and I still have some clients that particularly only ever want to deal with me, and so I come in and do these little pieces of work. But I'm trying to do all these other things at the same time, and I feel like there's always so much push-pull of me jumping in and out, and I feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing anyone any favors, right? Because I'm like here trying to do this thing, now trying to do this thing, and then I'm back into Talent Army, and so like,
it's a real journey, like, because we thought, so we've had Willoughby she was about 5 years ago, so we're like, well, that will be a good test to see if we can step out a little bit, and focus on her. And when then when you realize like you can step back, actually, like now the business still needs you. So you're like, okay, cool, we've come back, we'll do that. And then with Forrest, we're like, cool, we'll step out for 3 months.
Both of you stepped out for 3 months?
Yeah, both of us this time stepped out for 3 months. And that was awesome. But then coming back in, basically the sales pipeline just dries up. Yeah. And there's no fault of the staff that we have, because that's not their primary. But you kind of just get to this point where like the founders are just the best people to
rainmake,
just bring the relationships in, because that's what we've always done. And business development or sales is actually, it just comes so naturally to the founder kind of brain versus the people who you get in as the general manager or the CEO. And then we did that last year where we started a new company. We actually started 2 new companies last year. So our focus shifted again, went to Burning Man, all those things. And then thought, everything was going well. And then, the recession started to hit in and everything. And we're like, okay, no, we've got to come back in again. So, I think you always, the goal is always to set it up to run on its own. Yeah. But you can never 100% guarantee it, I reckon.
Yeah, it's constant.
But then also you come in and you're like, oh, this is fun, I love this, like this is I kind of know this stuff, and we've got amazing stuff, so it's always fun to work closely with them again. And then
depends on their personality type, right? Like, because some people are just constantly looking to grow themselves out of their comfort zone and try things and innovate and push forward, right, and try other things. And so like for me, I'm the same. Like, Talent Army is fantastic and I love the work that I do there, but I'm yearning for something a little bit different as well, right? Like, I want to just try other things. I want to be the dumbest person in the room again, because that feeling for me is exciting.
Totally. Yeah. But I mean, I think you can. I mean, but what I also love about working with Ben is there's 2 of us. So it just means that Soul Æther, which is the sci-fi world, is kind of my baby. Even though he really supports me, and he led the capital raise and stuff last year for that. And then the other company, Realize Retreats, is his baby, which is like an online retreat offering. So I support him on that, and he supports me on Soul Æther.
Is the retreat offering, because we had Brooke from Sharesies on the podcast last week, and she said, I said last week, it was like a couple of hours ago, but it came out last week. She talked about going to your retreat down south. Was that a part of this, or is it a separate thing?
No, that was a separate thing. So that was just a few founders that we knew. We just invited some people to come down to Queenstown for a gathering just after COVID hit. So it was like the July after in 2020, just to get people socialising again and chatting about business and life. So that was that one. But we did actually host a similar one the year after at Aroha, which is a retreat down in Glenorchy. And similar idea, just like-minded people coming together, but actually not about business, but more about life in general and health. And then through all of these things, Ben and I have been to Aroha a few times and just completely changed our lives, mentally, physically, emotionally. And we've become friends with Damien, who is one of the co-founders there. And we just wanted to bring this to as many people as we could. So we've worked with them and started a new company called Realize Retreats, which brings the Aroha offering in a 1, 2, 3 day offering where people can do it anywhere in the world and with their friends or on their own or wherever.
Yeah.
And it's way cheaper because like Aroha is beautiful, but it's expensive.
Yeah. So I have mixed emotions on that, and I hope you know what I'm saying. It's
You cannot tell me your opinion. No.
Yeah. Too bad. I've never had that problem. I love that, right? Like I love when I'm working with, I'm not sure if I can announce this yet. I'm working with a big company that does a big, I'm trying to be really vanilla, event. And they were like, oh, you know what, you're going to come and sponsor and do something at the event, and can you use your voice? I was like, talk at it or do something. And I was like, no, I said, I don't like just giving my money for no reason. Like I said, if I'm going to give my money, I want to take snippets of this event, and maybe I can set up as a podcaster there. And as the guests come off stage, I can just chat with them so that we can give out a little snippet of their talk to the more, 800 people go to this event, but lots of people can't afford it. And so we can give out little snippets for that. And so like, I love the thought of trying to give people an opportunity to see something that they normally can't afford or can't get to and the likes. But then I also think there's something so special about getting people together physically in person that, you just can't beat.
100%. I mean, Aroha costs like $6,000 plus, and it's in Queenstown, you got to fly there. Whereas this like Realize retreat, I think, ranges from $100 to $500, and you can share that between 5 friends, and you can do that in your house. And I've done it the 3-day one, and it like literally it resets you. So I don't think there's like definitely the big lofty goals of going to retreats. Definitely like face to face is my absolute like soul. I love it so much.
Is this from a spiritual retreat or a mental?
It's like physical and emotion and physical and physical and spiritual. Yeah. But you also need to just do the little ones in between. So it's important to do both. Like you don't have to save yourself up to just do one big thing, but it's better to do little and more often. I would say.
Yeah. I got a friend who, he's an American guy who had a long history of workaholic, full on he pushed his depression down and just put a mask of being the best worker that he could be. And then he got to a point where he was like, had to close his business in the last couple of years, unfortunately, and decided to do an ayahuasca journey and go off and find himself. Non-religious workaholic guy, and has come back a completely different person, like completely. But I'm almost a little bit worried that he's gone from one extreme to the other. And I'm a big believer in like slowly increment steps into these big like life changes, because you can't preach one thing after being at a retreat for 3 days. You can't be an expert on it, retreating it. And he was like trying to get everyone to follow his journey now and the likes. And so, when you say little small in-between ones, that definitely is something that I subscribe to as well.
Yeah.
So what do you like? Can we go back to you and Ben said that you had this awakening in health and mental and the likes. What was that for you? What were you missing and what did you find?
I guess my like spiritual journey started when I was 29 and I decided to go to Aroha, and I was like, I'm going to get my body ready for having kids. I was like I had no idea about, I did yoga, but I didn't understand like the philosophy of yoga, just the physical, movement and stuff. And then when I was there, I was, you walk up these mountains and I was super fit. But for some reason I was like, felt like I had asthma, like I like couldn't breathe. And it was like, I was like, what's going on? And then one of the days, I was like, I can't even walk up that hill. I'm just going to go back to the room. And then one of the guys was like, oh, just talk to me about whatever comes out. Just talk, whatever words come out of your mouth. And so I just like talked and walked to the top of the mountain without even no path whatsoever. And he was like, oh, do you realize that maybe you're holding all of your emotions in your throat? And I was like, no, but that kind of makes sense because I couldn't do public speaking. Just could cramp up in my throat anytime I was trying to like think about an emotion. And then he introduced me to the chakras. And so since then, since I was 29, I've been working on my throat chakra, and it has just like changed the way that I approach everything and understanding all of the different chakras.
What is a chakra for people listening to this that don't know?
I don't even know if I can explain it. Basically, there's like different parts of there's different energy centers within your body. So there's like the root chakra, which is down like the base of your bum area, and you've got your sacral, which is around your like belly, which is kind of, so root chakra is about grounding, and then you've got your sacral chakra, which is around creativity and sexuality, and you've got your solar plexus, which is like your center, and that's all about like self-confidence and outward looking stuff. I'm probably getting this all wrong, but anyway, someone can correct me. And there's the heart chakra, which is about love and warmth and love, really. Throat chakra is about your voice and being heard. And then there's the third eye, which is more about the brain. And these are the two I don't know the most, the third eye. And then there's the crown chakra, which is like the connection to the spiritual world. And so my main ones that I focus on are the lower parts, so the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, and the root chakra. Yeah.
And how has that helped you as a person, business person, mother, partner?
I feel like our lives are so up in our head all the time that I'm always focused on grounding myself. And that has just meant that I have the tools to ground myself in any like scary, nervous, like angry situations, whether it's with children or with business or a physical like fear or anything like that. I feel like I can work through them. And then so when I went to Burning Man, I know, or Carlos or one of the other ones referenced me there. I had just had 2 children. Ben and I decided we weren't going to have any more kids, and this was our first trip together away. When I went to Burning Man, I wanted to reclaim my sacral chakra area, which is creativity and sexuality. And so basically what I did was just dance and like just send all the energy down to the womb to heal it after having 2 children. And after that experience, like I was able to come back and I had unlocked something in me. I'd healed a lot of the trauma, I guess, that my body had gone through after giving birth to 2 children. And so that was like a big focus for me. So even just having those as like focus points, and you've always got things that you can work on, and if you can just focus them on an energetic area, it helps you target that, even if it may or may not be true, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, cool. If you hadn't been explaining this to me pre my psychedelic experience that I told you about before show, I probably would have been like, I don't really get it. Post, absolutely get it. And so I think like just us getting out of our heads and being able to understand what's happening in our mind and body and everything is like really powerful. And like I can imagine, like as a woman who then has to become a mother, and your body changes, and then giving empowerment back to your body again to become, like a woman and a mother now, it's cool. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I really like that. So let's go back to Soul Æther.
Yeah.
How would you explain this to me? Like I have the intellect of an 8-year-old, right? And so what I want you to do is like explain it to me like you're pitching it to me.
So Soul Æther is a world.
Soul Æther?
Soul Æther, yep. Or Æther. It is Æther because we've used the A. It's like a Norwegian A. So it's a world that is inspiring a young adult age group. So it's kind of like 12 to 16 is our age group. And the main goal of Soul Æther, outside of the story itself, is to inspire that age group to think about the future and the different ways that they can make decisions based on intergenerational decision making. So the choices I make today will affect someone in 300 years' time. And so Soul Æther's story is we follow these alchemists, and they've harnessed the power of reincarnation, which means that the 300-year-old them made a decision, a strategic decision that today they have to deal with, and then they have to make a strategic decision based on something they're going to have to deal with in another 200 years' time. So it's really like exploring intergenerational decision-making and strategies, and but in this world, they are the ones that have to deal with these decisions. And so the alchemists are there. Because they reincarnate, we're also exploring themes of gender and ethnic like diversity, and that they've lived all of the genders and all the different ethnicities, so therefore there is no racism or sexism. And what does that world actually look like? So that's kind of where we want to explore in this world. And also weaving in not a particular Indigenous culture. I fuck up a bit too. Māori, like Ngai Tahu. And so wanting to make sure that that is like, that's like part of who I am, that will always be woven into the stories that I tell. But when you do fictional storytelling, you almost can't, I don't want to bring in a particular Indigenous culture, but it's about weaving in the general like philosophies of Indigenous ways of being. So that's kind of how we wrap that up.
So new language and everything, or like?
No, I'll just keep it simple for now.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a big project, dude.
I can't even I can only speak one language right now. So, so those are some of the themes that I wanted to explore, and then we have science and magic are the two like big forces that the alchemists are trying to keep balance of. So science represents like technology in our world, and then magic represents nature in our world. And so like how do we explore those themes through the stories that we tell? And then the alchemists represent balance, which is my core value in life. And Ben's as well, or one of his as well. So there's a million themes in there, and I know that it's like over the top, but like when we do the animated series or the games, it's very subtle. But those are the key themes that we wanted to explore in it. How do you pitch that? How do you pitch it?
like that, because there's lots there, right? Like and you're like hang, like it's like multiverse, right? Almost like of things that you want to explore, because you know it's this one universe and seeing it through different angles and different stories that all connect. I think it's really cool. But like, how do you take that to someone and say, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and this and this and this?
Yeah,
and this?
So less is more for sure. And how we pitched it. So we pitched last year and raised $1 million to do this. And I guess the way that we were able to raise money on a story was through the Web3 play with NFTs and metaverse and stuff like that. So we kind of just set the vision of what we wanted it to be, and then just really simply like this is the strategy of how we do it. So first we'll make the NFTs, build the community, hopefully raise money through that. Then we're going to make an animated series from there. After that, it'll be a game, and after that, it'll be a film.
Okay, cool.
And there's a graphic novel in there too. So kind of like this is step one, step two, but we can't do this before we do that, you know?
Yeah, technology, MVP, you know, iterate on
it. All of that kind of stuff. And then in terms of the story, like we've already got an animated series outline, and we've written a feature film, and the world is very much like filled out. And so just trying to do that in a way that doesn't overwhelm people. That was the hardest. Like that was the learning of pitching, was like take things out, just refining and not, you know, and there's like more information if people want to see it, but actually most people don't. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like, how do you pitch that, right? Because it's like you have to give someone so much information, like in terms of what you're going to do. I think that's really cool, and I'm excited to see that. That must be a really fun project to work on.
It is a fun project, but we decided to launch an NFT project right at the worst time of crypto in the history of the world, like last year. So the NFT drop went horrifically bad.
Yeah.
And well, you know, like no one bought it. But everyone loves the vision of what we're trying to do. So now it's we kind of took like a pause on it, so we haven't worked on it just to lick our wounds and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to, you know, focus on it 2 days a week and start to look at how we can build it up again, and really focusing on the intergenerational thing. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, good. NFTs definitely fell off the market pretty quickly, didn't they? Yeah. It's like, I felt like every time I went onto YouTube, I was seeing like a Coffee's Yellow video about someone that had done a rug pull with an NFT, and then they sort of ruined it for everyone that was trying to do it well. And so, like, there's some cool people doing cool stuff with NFTs. One of our clients in Auckland, Danworks, like Glorious, that are doing it with like around the world at Wimbledon and the likes. And I really like the artistic, you know, storytelling NFTs. And
I mean, the thing with NFTs, still, there's just a contract. So what is cool about them is the technology that sits behind them, and that's what a lot of people seem, you know, still aren't understanding. So I think the technology of NFTs will live on. It just won't be like that flashy art application. So I'm still keen on it, because one of the things that we want to explore with Soul Æther is the idea of non-linear storytelling. So if you hold an NFT and your NFT holder like reads the book and then watches the movie or plays the game will be slightly different because you've actually read the book first. And so the NFT will help track that user journey based on that personal experience, rather than just like a general linear approach to how we consume content right now.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
that's where I think NFTs are interesting, is how do you personalize experiences more?
Yeah, I think that's the good thing about those and like Bitcoin and blockchain and everything, right? Like it becomes the cowboy race initially, right? Everyone's just trying to make money off it. And then when that sort of subsides, you sort of see the people that are actually truly trying to do something cool with it. I hope that's what happens with AI now. You know, like everyone's doing AI now.
Yeah.
And so AI is a little bit more scary than NFTs and blockchain. But so let's go back to Wrestler, right? So like my question to you about Wrestler is, like when I first met you all, you know, in the studio across the street, and then I feel like it was like 10 minutes later and Ben was showing me the new digs and I was like, what the fuck? It just went poof, you know, like the growth and that building, that fit out you have there is fantastic. And great parties at your digs too.
We do like to party,
yeah. So like, talk me through like, how did you have such great growth so fast?
Well, I think one thing in terms of spaces, Ben loves spaces. So he's actually had 4 offices or studios in his lifetime. One was like in an office in Catch, which is now I think Fox & Co. And
that was the Cuba Street one?
It's just off Cuba Street. And and it used to be Reason's office. It's actually got a really cool history of like agencies that have been in there. So he started off in the room where there was a little vault. It was just him. And then he moved to, 5. And then he moved down to where Goldings is now. Yeah. And then from there, so he grows in spaces. That's one of the like visuals for him. And then he got into Nigzab, which is like up in this bigger space. I was like, oh my God, that's such a big investment. And there was 4 of us in there. And it was like cool and cute. Yeah, and then we ended up going to Jesse Street across from Prefab. And so the spaces was representative of the growth that he wanted. It wasn't it was generally there already. And so we'd be growing into it. And then so when the one that we have currently now, he proposed, he was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to build my dream space and we'll figure it out. And we grow into it. And we really did grow into it. So it's one of those weird things of like, he loves to see and manifest spaces. That's one of his core ways of growth. Yeah. And then we all are like, we just like have to do sales to make it work. So that was one strategy, and he designed the current one that we've got now, like in SketchUp, and we put it in VR and we walked through it, and that's how we designed it, as like a pure like pipeline of the work that we wanted to manifest.
Yeah. I love that, right? Because that's a little bit like myself. Like I'm always like, and this is who we're going to be now, and so I'm just committing to it, and too bad we have to be this now, right? And so, but that's
a leader, like that's a real leader, because you have to have the guts and you have to push back against people who don't want to do that. It's like changing your company's name or something like that, you know, it's like, it just has to be one person who makes that final decision.
Yeah. But how do you sell that, right? Like, so how did Ben sell that to you, or do you believe in Ben so much that you were like, yep, with you, no matter what?
We call it campaigning. So he comes up with a wacky idea and then he basically campaigns it with me for about 6 months until I finally approve.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
So we call it it's a no until it's a yes, yes. If it's a yes, no, it's a no until it's a yes, yes. Okay. And that's how our whole relationship works, yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot.
And like personal life and everything, from buying furniture to, hiring someone or anything, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you mentioned like changing name. I was keen to ask you about Wrestler because like I remember recruiting for Wrestler or talking about Wrestler with people, and they go, what Wrestler? Like the person wrestling? And I'm like, yeah, Wrestler, and the website Wrestler. How did that come about?
So the first name was Ben Foreman, very original. And then it moved to STEM Creative, which was about like having a STEM of an idea. And then what we realised is when you have a name, you have to be super confident and happy about the name that you are introducing yourself to. So we found that our body language and the way that we would speak when we say, hey, we're from STEM Creative, it like kind of goes down. People were like, what did you say? Yeah. So we knew
weren't proud to say it.
We weren't proud to say it, and people were like, STEM Creative, STEM? Yeah. Like there was this weird, they couldn't quite hear the word properly. And so that, for Ben especially, he was like, nah, I want to change it. And we were like, oh, but got such a good, this was the campaigning here. Yeah. So got such a good reputation. Like, why would we lose that brand recognition now? But he just like, nah, we're going to do it. We're going to change it. And so we did a strategy day, and that was with just mainly our creatives at the time. And we did like, what do we want to be? What kind of company do we want to be? All of that stuff. And then by the end of the day, we did the new name workshop with just some, drinks and food and stuff like that. And we just literally like were throwing words out and about. But Glenn Poklasky, who, has really been there right from the beginning as well, just threw out this word, wrestler. And we were all like, oh, that feels so good. It just really sat with us. It just really sat with us. And for all of us, and especially I guess coming from me, was really like what we had talked about all through that strategy day was that we want to make amazing work for our clients, but we don't always want to just do what they say, because they're not necessarily the best at storytelling. They're definitely the experts in their offering and their company and what their expertise are, but we're the expertise in storytelling. So we wanted to make sure that when people came to us that we were able to have the confidence to push back on some of the ideas that they had, or give them ideas that maybe they might not always agree with. So there was a bit of that like alpha confidence there. And Wrestler as a name kind of put that out front without us even having to say that to people. So when you come and work for Wrestler, like, it's wrestling. We're wrestling with an idea, and, you have ideas, we have ideas, and together we'll come out with the best solution. So that's kind of like why the name really stuck for us. And then when you say Wrestler, no one can confuse that word with anything else. So that's also a really nice thing. Yeah.
Awesome. I've always wondered that, and so I'm glad that you told me that. Thank you. How like as an artist, right, creating videos, how hard is it when you're working with someone who has a really terrible idea, or they just can't get past a particular thing that they want to do, and you're trying to get them to build something, like shoot something really amazing? Like, how do you wrestle with that? Like how do you wrestle with them to get a better quality video?
I think that, generally like the people who we're working with, they have to own that project. So if they really want that idea to come to life, we will always make that for them. But we'll also give them the opportunities to look at what are the other ways of executing it. Because, for example, if someone says, hey, I want to come and make VR with you, and then I'm like, well, this shouldn't be a VR project. Like, you're probably better off to do a video or whatever. It would be like that kind of thing. You're proposing an idea. But at the end of the day, if they really wanted their idea to come to life, like, awesome for us to be able to help them with that too. But then you're also working with budget constraints and things like that. So it's really getting them to understand, like, what is the best approach for that. And if you work with any agency, it's really like, what's the problem you're trying to solve, rather than just coming at something with just an idea, And then the other thing is sometimes the idea might be really big, and then you can just propose, okay, well, why don't we just try something small and see if that works? And then you can like iterate on it as well. So you're not always just like doing a huge project that may or may not work. And you can kind of start small and go, oh, do we work well together? First thing. And like, is this the kind of thing you want? Is this the stuff that your target market actually wants to receive? And you can grow from there.
Gateway drug them a little bit. Just, naming things, creating things hard. Like, I'm trying to name another company at the moment. And I said to Dan, my business partner, we should just go and take mushies somewhere and sit in the jungle and, try and come up with a name then, because I find it really challenging, naming things.
But honestly, like Glenn Poklasky, I could introduce you to him. He's like named so many companies in Wellington, you wouldn't believe.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so good. He's just the best. So you're better off paying someone who does it right. And then they just give you heaps of options, and then you can get that instant reaction feeling too.
Well, the problem that I have is that if it's not born from my mind, I can't associate it as much. And so,
but you can still be part of the creative process of developing it.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely my problem, right, that I need to change in terms of like
you don't
stopping.
have to solve all the problems.
I'm just not there yet. Cool. Hey, so we normally wrap up the podcast asking people, because you've content fasting, and I was keen to quickly talk to you about fasting actually, because I'm water fasting at the moment. You've been fasting. We were chatting about this.
Well, I was, and then I realised I needed my body to be in a different mode. So I do evening fast, but I didn't do a 5-day fast, but I'm going to do that later. So even that's an interesting conversation.
Have you done one before?
Yeah.
I did it. So I got divorced, and I realised I wanted to get myself into a bit of, like as a divorced guy, it's like, I'm going to look my best now. I'm going to be the best version of myself now that I'm divorced, sorry, ex, And so I did a 22-day fast.
What?
Water fast. Yeah.
Oh my
Lost
God.
32 kilos. felt like a different person at the end of it. And the ability to push myself to places now is so easy after doing that. Like, and so 5-day fast for me, I could do in my sleep, easy after doing that now. But it's always the same. So first one day you're like, yeah, adrenaline and motivation, I can do this. And then the second day you're like, oh, what the fuck am I doing this for? And you have to push yourself a little bit. Day 3, you forget about it, right? And it becomes a little bit easy. Day 4, if you're doing a 4-day fast, day 4 is like, oh, you start thinking about it again because you start thinking about the end of it. Day 5 can be a little bit challenging or can be exciting and exhilarating. It's the same thing with 20 days, right? Don't recommend it if you haven't researched it and, not talking to your doctor about it. Yeah. I'm not a doctor, but yeah, it's like I'm all about exploring to how I can, best fix my body and fix my mind. And
what's the thing that fasting's done for you? What is it that you love the most about fasting?
Yeah, it gives me, it's like a mental break for me in terms of, I'll fast if I've just got so much on my plate and I'm feeling a bit burnt out and I spiral down into depression really quickly. Like I've had depression over my life. I don't spiral to depression anymore because I know how if I'm thinking about my body as a fuel tank, when I feel like I'm getting lower, I'll do a fast as a way to break that up and I get a lot of mental clarity going through a fast.
Yeah.
Like you're able to just think through things. It's like time slows down and process things and solve some problems. And I feel like the impact that has on my body, it's taking away the fat cells and all the things, and it's taking all the bad nutrients out of your body first, so that the endorphins that you get and the happiness that you get. And so yeah, I come out of it a different person, and I come out of it with the intensity of what I want to do next, and so it's almost like a closing chapter, starting the new chapter in my mind. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
And vanity. Let's be honest,
losing
right?
32
yeah.
whatever, that's extreme. I did it. I found after having kids, with my last child, I had a mild case of postnatal depression, and I found fasting was a really good way for me to get my brain more clarity. And so I do seasonal fasts, and the clarity for me is the main one. And then I don't eat dinner as another fasting tool. I don't always do it, but I do it sometimes just to help keep me on track.
It's good. It's a good thing. I think you just got to find what triggers that you can have influence in your body to be able to say, I want to feel better. This is it. This is my trigger now that I do. For me, it's simple things if my house isn't clean, I'm in a bad state, because it means that if I can't get home and clean my house in the morning before I leave, I must be in a bad depressive state. So if I look around and go, oh, my house is really messy. Oh, fuck. Well, that's right. I've been hit by a truck. I felt bad. And so I've sat laying on the couch doing nothing. And so the first thing I'll do is just clean my whole house. And then usually I'm listening to music, joyful, happy, cleaning my house. And by the end of it, I come out of it a completely different person. But if that doesn't trigger me enough, then I'll say, oh, maybe I need to do a fast, or maybe I need to do this. And
cool. So that's awesome. So good to know the signs.
Yeah. I think you have to, right? Burnout's real, dude.
It's real. Yeah.
And depression's real.
And it's so quick. It can turn on you so quickly.
Yeah. Especially when you're doing multiple things at once, right? It's very easy to get burnt out.
Yeah.
Hey, so on that, right? I normally finish with the question, because this is a really long way of asking you this question. But what I was trying to say before we got sidetracked there was, I normally ask people what makes you happy as a final question. And I'm still interested in that. But the final question that we ask now is, if I could put one thing in the show notes for this podcast that you want the people that listen to this to go off and explore, go off and look at, what's the event, the website, the book, the podcast, the person, the thing that you're like, I really encourage you to go and check this out.
Can I do too?
Yeah.
So something that I've been really interested, deep diving into over the last 6 months is Maramataka, which is the Māori lunar calendar. And what I love about it is the daily tracking of your energies and the way that the environment and spirituality can flow in each day. And I actually... I follow, it's allright.org.nz, which is the New Zealand mental health website, and it has each day's maramataka moon on it. And it's really simple, but it just gives you a thing of like, it's high energy today. It's a good day for doing hui, karakia, and hanging out with whānau. Something and it can give you a really good guide around like maybe what meetings you should book in for these days or, don't make big decisions on this day. Okay, don't hold a big conference or something.
Yeah.
Like really like leaning into the rhythms of the moon and the tides and stuff like that has been super powerful for me. And then noticing if like a big day is coming up and you can't not have a big hui on it, like preparing yourself for that. And that's helped me a lot.
How often does a big day come up?
I have probably big days every couple of weeks. Like, like life's pretty wild for me.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Awesome.
And then the other one, which is Living in a Place of Surrender by Michael Singer, is it's like him talking a course about how to live from a place of surrender. And I haven't read any of his books, but I did listen to this over summer, and it's just a really practical tool to release like the stress of life and not worry about things. And it just has helped me through so many things. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't tell that very well, but
awesome. Oh, well,
those are two very different things, but
yeah, I like the sound of both of those, to be honest, for myself personally. And if anyone else wants to see them, look into them more, they'll be in the show notes for you to go off and find them. But that sort of brings us to our time, right? So I had a really good chat. That was fun. I really
I feel like
enjoyed
I didn't ask you any questions. You're really good at asking questions.
Oh, this is your show, right? This is your episode.
I know, it'd be good to have a conversation. But
yeah.
anyway.
No,
sorry, everyone.
I'm sick of my own voice. I'm happy to hear more.
That was great.
That was
you
cool.
hold space really nicely, so thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming on. All the best. Cheers.
Yeah, bye.
How many of you really want to play that game or read that graphic novel now or go and watch that movie or be involved in that sci-fi world? Because I fucking do. I'm going to be honest, that I'm really curious about that. Like multimedia way of viewing content, and seeing different perspectives and the likes. And so, I'm really excited by that, Kat, and thank you for coming on and talking about it. Being a big fan of Wrestler since the start, they hopefully have sent me the copy of the video now that you can watch in the show notes below. I hope it doesn't offend anyone. I hope we discuss why we did it with some impact and empowerment. And so, I hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a great episode. Real honest, authentic human conversations in business and personal and spirituality and everything involved in this. And so thank you so much, Kat, for giving me your energy and for coming on and just having a great conversation. And I hope I hope everyone took something from it. And so, best way we can keep building this podcast is by you subscribing, by you sharing it around to your friends, by tagging your friends in the comments below that might want to see this one. And so thank you for doing that. And until the next time, see you later.
This podcast is produced by John O'Tucker from Empire Film.